If you spend years trying to get your partner to take a lick of ownership and they never do, like you do have to leave. You can't have a magnificent relationship without ownership.
I'm going to leave, period, is red button language because of the fact that it's a threat for abandonment so that we can have a vulnerable conversation.
Conscious couples, business partners, and individuals, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and relationship expertise to help you consistently cultivate the most magnificent relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges. We'll help you have the courage to be your authentic self, communicate effectively, and constructively resolve conflict.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching, speaking, podcasting, and hosting live events with conscious couples all over the world, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we.
Conscious couples and individuals from all over the world, welcome back to another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode 229, the type of relationship disconnects you need to know. This is going to be an event recap. We had our 60th month in a row, 60th virtual event. Thank you so much for those of you who did come. For those of you who did not, how dare you? I'm just joking. Before I jump into this episode, I want to remind everyone why we're here. We are here to improve our intimate relationship from the inside out. It's Saturday. I'm in a good mood. And ladies first, my love.
I love that for you. I love that for us.
Does that mean you're not in a good mood?
I would say
that's a
I'm
no.
in a lovely mood.
Yeah, lovely.
So my intention for today's episode, despite my mood, however you want to say it, is to make sure that not only do we do a good, high quality event recap, but ultimately so that you as a conscious couple or conscious single are hearing this and understanding where you might be unintentionally disconnecting your relationship and what to do about that at the very base level. Mm-hmm. Specifically language.
Yeah, so Emilia created a concept called red button language and green button language. One of them disconnects, one of them reconnects. We're going to get into that. Before we do so, at the event we used a film called Anyone But You. Now, before we talk about this film, if you have seen it, you already know this. If you haven't seen it, you don't. That movie is ridiculous.
We'll put the link to the IMDb down below in the show notes.
Yes, we will. So Emilia calls it a com-rom instead of a rom-com, and the reason why is it's more comedy than it is romantic. Yeah, it is outrageous in the best way. I thought it was hilarious. I really did. If the purpose was laughing, they did a good job.
They crushed it.
They did a good job. With a few unsavory scenes. Anyways, we used this as an example, and there's one scene in particular where I'm going to have to provide context to the film. I'm going to try to do this. So I'm going to try to condense a 2-hour-long movie into 2 minutes here. Boy meets girl in a coffee shop.
Nice.
They have the best freaking first date of all time, to the point where they stay up late making grilled cheeses together.
Fall asleep
talking.
snuggling.
Yeah, they fall asleep snuggling. Best first date they both ever had. They both wake up in the morning after snuggles, and they kind of freak out because they're sort of falling for each other, and they've never felt this way before, and so they do what anyone would do, which is ruin it. So she leaves and kind of sneaks out, quote unquote, and when she comes back, she calls her friend, and when she comes back, he's talking to his friend who just got home, his roommate, and he's so scared, and he's upset and hurt that she left, so he talks shit about her behind her back, and she overhears it.
Yeah.
So they go from best first date ever to basically hating each other. And then they reconnect 6 months later or so, where two people they're extremely close with are getting married at the same destination wedding in Australia. Boom. Stage is set.
Nice.
Thank you. They then...
And they have to share a house together.
They have to share a house together.
There was no in between that moment and this whole wedding, there was no repair, no nothing. So they're arch nemesis at this point because they just are really, really hurt deep down, but not willing to share.
And they both blame each other for... Yeah. And so their exes both end up there.
also at the retreat. Or it was a
wedding.
Whole house that everyone was sharing.
Yeah. And in order to get their exes back, essentially, well, the girl wanted the ex off her back. He wanted his ex back. They pretended to be together, which is why it was so funny. Yeah. Because they basically hate each other and they're pretending to be together. And it's the funniest thing ever. But anyways, so eventually they do, of course, start to fall in love again. Mm-hmm. And they end up in this huge fight because he revealed something to his friend that she told him in private. Yeah. And then the whole Brady bunch found out about it, and it was this fight scene. Yeah. And in this fight scene, they were really, really cruel to each other. And this is after they actually were falling in love. And that's the stage is set. So the point of this event is to identify red button languages, because that's what they were using. They were basically blaming and shaming. Yep. And green button languages is reconnection languages. So let's move to that.
Yeah. So why that set the scene really does matter is because all of us at one point or another, we end up putting our heart on the line for love. We end up getting hurt, whether you're in a relationship, long-term, short-term, whatever, and you get hurt as a result of that. And then what you do in the aftermath of that hurt or that conflict is really what determines a high-quality, satisfying relationship. And most people never repair after that. After the conflict, and during the conflict, you say things that you don't mean. And that's a huge disconnect that so few couples know how to repair after, which is where the green button language comes in to help actually that process of repairing. Because when you go out of connection to your partner or someone that you like or love or what have you, be it you've been in a relationship for a couple of years or it's been a couple decades at this point, the red button language is something that couples unintentionally go near and press, which is criticism, blame, contempt, character attacks, threats, withdrawal, absolutes. You know, that's where the always or never comes in. And red button language, it's really hard to recover from. And that's the thing that this episode and this whole event was about, of how, when you do go near that, because no one really taught us those skills of how to navigate when you're so hurt and when your heart feels like it's getting stabbed or you feel like your partner is lashing out. Like, how do you really recover from that? And so through the event, we went through a couple of different rupture repair cycle process that includes the language that is necessary to ultimately return back to connection. And really what this event was all about was turning conflict itself into connection. So for this episode, we want to pull out, how do you navigate in the aftermath of a disconnect like that?
So trying to get some tangible examples, because all those are concepts. We need to get some tangible examples of each of these. So criticism, blame, defensiveness, character attacks, absolutes, always and never, threats, and withdrawal. Mm-hmm. She said something in the movie of no one can ever trust you, and that's why you're alone. Yes. And he said, yeah, what's your excuse? And they just start attacking each other.
Guys like you.
Yeah, guys like you. And she refers to him as an F-boy. Yeah. So we need to come up with an example of each of these. Criticism is pretty easy. You basically attack something about them. Mm-hmm. What did I say to Kev recently that I regretted? And Kev's my business partner, and I was making a joke, and he's short. And so we have an next. This is, it's funny, and he laughed too, but I could tell it was like, Alan, you idiot, right?
Yeah, across the line.
I crossed the line a little bit. So we have an event coming up for the Next Level Hope Foundation on Sunday, and we got all these shirts in, and I was super playful with this, so he could tell in my energy I was being playful. But I basically said, "Do you want me to save you a kid small?" I know, because he's little. He's jacked though. I thought he was over it. Yeah. He's not over it. Yeah. And he is. He like, I could just see he was laughing, but he was like, why did you say that? Yeah. The truth is making fun is fun, but not when it's actually hurtful.
Yeah.
And the truth is, I didn't think it would be actually hurtful, but I think it was a little bit. And if I were to bring it back up, he'd be like, dude, we're good. It's not a big deal. But that's an example of unnecessary criticism. You can't take those digs at people you care about because it did create a little bit of disconnect in that moment. And I wanted to use that as an example. As funny as it is, it's still not.
I would also put that under a little bit of a character attack because you might think that his shortness has kind of came into his level of character and who he's become as a result of that. So,
well, it might have felt like a character attack, but it wasn't from my perspective.
Right.
But
And that's it right there. I love that because ultimately the example is the fact that regardless of what your intention was,
I meant it to be like a bodybuilding
exactly.
joke. Like he jokes with me all the time about stuff. I didn't mean the short thing.
No, and that's where this connect, like this language and what we say and how we say it and the tone in which we say it and the timing in which we say it to our partners. Language is everything, and you might not mean to hurt your partner, but you do.
Yeah.
And what do you do in the aftermath of that when you're blaming them for not taking out the trash and all of a sudden the trash doesn't get picked up? Do you blame them for that because they missed it? Or do you kind of go near your feelings and say how you're feeling vulnerably and kind of repair the fact that, hey, I realized I just blamed you in that moment and that wasn't really fair to you.
Is it?
I was upset.
If they were supposed to take out the trash?
Okay. Could be. Yeah. But it's less about whether that happens or not and how you show up in the relationship on the languaging.
That's a bad example, in my opinion.
Okay. Then bring another one.
Well, here, I'm gonna. So with the Kev thing, I'm gonna go back and talk to him about it, and I'm gonna say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then he'll know that I know that wasn't right. And I intend on that. I already intended on it.
And you're doing something very beautiful in that because you're going back way after the fact and repairing the relationship, which a lot of people don't do.
Got to.
Yeah.
You got to. Because I've been thinking about it. I was like, that wasn't very kind. And that's who I want to be. So I think that's a really good example. I think the taking out the trash example with love is not a good one because there's no character attack in that. I mean, let's talk about the ones that really hurt people. Not to call you out on your example. Do you want to explain that better?
No.
If someone was supposed to take out the trash and didn't, you're allowed to bring it up. You're not supposed to say, "Hey, you're constantly incompetent." Dingus.
I'm not saying that. Okay. What I think the attempt to articulate that example was the fact that you might not know that they might have gotten a phone call from their mom or dad and they got news that totally took them off the rails, right? So before getting curious about what happened, going into a blaming and not necessarily getting curious before, that's kind of where my perspective on something like that comes. It's not about excuse or the example
but
in
honestly,
particular.
I think the majority of couples are under in that. They're so quick to benefit of the doubt, you must have gotten a call, instead of just, because we've talked about that with fair play. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just neglectful.
Yeah.
And I think more of our listeners need to step up and actually call people out than they do need to, you know what I mean? I think they're overly curious and, giving them the benefit of the doubt, it must be something. When in reality, that partner might actually just be neglectful and not really caring.
For sure. So in a situation like that, let's say, and that partner comes back and attacks, well, you never take out the trash, so why are you blaming me this one time? That's, again, red button language. So that's where ping-ponging back and forth to red button language, it doesn't really get you anywhere in a relationship.
If nothing else comes of this episode, what do you want to make sure everyone leaves with?
I would say for this episode in particular, I think that it's really important that everyone leaves with noticing how their language has an impact on their partner, which is where red button language comes in, which is you, instead of focusing in on you, which I find a lot of people actually do, to kind of your comment earlier, focus on me. I can see how that hurt you, and I'm noticing inside of me that I feel really bad about that. Or I can understand that I might have just hurt your feelings there.
So the core of the problem is people are using red button language. We're going to put these assets in the show notes, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So both of these digital assets will be in the show notes. There's red button language and green button language. We have it up there. I just don't know how to articulate this well. I want us to make this clearer. Threats, withdrawal, character attacks, defensiveness, blame, criticism, and absolutes. How does someone know when it's red button versus green button language? It's in the energy, right? It's
Definitely in the energy, it is protective in the nature of it, and it focuses in on the me. So, for example, if you're saying, okay, well, I am just going to leave and you can go cool off or whatever, like that I'm just going to leave without a communication on, I'm going to come back in 5 minutes and check in on you.
But babe, if someone's attacking you, it doesn't seem like me. Like when he was saying like, oh, really? Well, then what's your excuse? It doesn't seem like it's about me. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I do see what you mean. And that's kind of where the tricky aspect of this
is. It's protective in nature.
Exactly.
You're trying to protect your heart, basically. And you're not vulnerable. You're not courageous. Maybe it's better to think of what it isn't.
Sure.
So green button language, how do you know when someone's using green button language? Because this is really just violent communication versus nonviolent communication, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how does someone know, like, how would someone, if they've never heard this before, how would they identify violent communication versus nonviolent communication?
I would say violent communication, I would first look at the level of arousal, aka like how intense is it being said, whatever it is. And then I would look at the actual content of the words. Are they hurtful at some point or another? That's red button. If it's extremely intense and hurtful, that's red button language. Whereas on the other hand, green button language it can be intense, but more likely than not, it's more emotionally regulated and responsible at that because you're mindful of the impact of how your words can come off. And the content of it focuses on a understanding of the impact of what I say impacts you, what you say impacts me. And so there's more of like a we-centric standpoint in the conversation or what's said, et cetera. Yeah. And it's, I own my part. I'm not going to blame you. I'm owning my part. And I recognize that my part might have impacted you. And that's essentially the two primary elements.
And what if you have a partner who doesn't own their part?
That's where that creates a whole different dynamic, because if they're not owning their part to the types of disconnects that people don't know about, there's never going to be able to be a repair. Yeah, exactly.
What would you say to our listeners who have a partner that never owns their part? Because I feel like that's fairly common.
I would return that question back to you, my love, because I know you're very passionate about that. What would you say to someone who doesn't take ownership?
Leave them immediately. I really wanted to hear from you. I didn't really want you to return it back to me, but I would say anyone, if you have a partner who doesn't take explicit ownership, that's a big red flag. For sure. Yeah. For sure. Because they will never improve, basically. I don't think you can improve without ownership.
Yeah.
At least not consciously.
Was it the event where you and I concluded in that together, where we both said that, like, if you're not willing to take ownership, was it that or another episode where we said that?
I think this was a long time ago, but for me, and I'll just bring everyone behind the scenes here, like, if I don't get explicit ownership of both of our sides, I don't feel certain that anything will change.
Right.
And honestly, even if I do take ownership, sometimes you don't know if things will change, because ownership is step one. Implementation is step two, and implementation is harder for me. Ownership's easy for me. Implementation can be challenging. Yeah. And you care more about implementation. I care more about ownership. Like, you can fail forward all day, but I need to know that you know that it's you.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I used to take all the ownership and I got all the improvements and I changed everything and the relationship still got worse.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's like green button language and red button language. It's so hard to explain, but you can tell. Like absolutes, like you always lie. What? And this is not something that was ever said to me, but like if I were to watch a fight, like you always lie, you never take out the trash. Like that would be a good example. Blanket statements that are absolutes.
Right.
And then criticism is like I mentioned with Kev, like that was unnecessary. Blame, that one's hard because sometimes it is the other person.
That's where accurate accountability, I think, is very different than blame. Blame is over the line of what is an accurate accountability and what is proportional to someone's.
What would be an example of blame versus accountability? Because all of this comes down to, like, I don't think you can use green button language unless you're with a partner who takes ownership. That's kind of what's jumping off the page for me. Because
I disagree with that.
Talk to me.
With all the love, because of the fact that you can be someone who goes near green button language often, and your partner can still be a jerk and always go near it.
But that's my point.
And then eventually you will end up mirroring. Like, I hear a lot from some people, like, I didn't want to become this person with this partner. I realized I've become this person that I don't even like. Like, you become someone you don't even like.
Yeah.
And that's because you have stayed in and not leveled up your skill set with respects to dealing with that. So while I'm with you,
left them.
exactly.
Right?
While I'm with you, just leave them. In all reality, that's not how relationships just immediately work.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that literally. I meant like,
but what
if you spend years trying to get your partner to take a lick of ownership
Right.
and they never
I'm
do,
with
like you do have to leave. You can't have a magnificent relationship without ownership.
there is eventually the boundaries that have to get eventually, you're only trading in your self-worth so much until you actually do have to leave.
Do you have a client who deals with red button language a lot?
Yeah, I do.
Can you share an example?
Off of recall, that might be difficult.
Okay.
But what I can say is that the dysregulation of that client, and I'm thinking of another client, when they're dysregulated, that's where their parts go near red button language. I'm just going to go leave, or I'm going to...
How is that red button language, babe?
Because
I'm gonna leave.
I'm going to leave, which is essentially literally like
I'm going to leave you.
I'm going to leave, period, is red button language, because of the fact that it's a threat for abandonment so that we can have a vulnerable conversation.
So that we can, or so that we can't?
So that we can, or so that we can't. So in a situation like that, people who are dysregulated will go near red button language, and leaving is abandoning. So that's going to highlight the protective mechanisms in the other partner, which then they're going to go near red button language.
But if you say, hey, I have to go, I want to return back to this.
Exactly.
I love you, that's green button.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Like, hey, I'm going to go down the street, just take a drive. Just for myself, my nervous system to cool off, because I realize how escalated this is getting. And I'm going to return back in 5 minutes. I will return back in 5 minutes. Or I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go to the bathroom and I just need a minute in the shower. Like, I love you and I'm going to come back and we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
That's a very different element. Is you take responsibility for the impact that you're having on your partner. And that is like the undercurrent here for the types of disconnects you need to know about. If you're not taking responsibility for the impact that you have on your partner, you're not going to be able to fix or implement some of these things that are really challenging in general, not to mention extraordinarily more difficult when you don't have responsibility and ownership at the center.
When we were watching this movie, not just the movie itself, but at the event, we picked 3 clips. Mm-hmm. It was so obvious to me, and I think that this is obvious to me now because we've done this work for so long, but it's like you two are both just super hurt, and you're both just attacking each other
from that
instead
place.
of being vulnerable. Like, if you were just humble, courageous, and vulnerable and candor, you would solve all of this. This would all solve. If one of you would just put your heart out and say, hey, I'm really hurt. I actually really like you a lot, and I'm upset that I screwed it up.
Yeah.
Like, then everything would be fine. But that instead they're just
so
attacking
scary.
each other. Yeah, that's so scary, emotionally scary, right?
Yep.
So that's the goal, really. If I could, highlight one thing in here is green button language is humble, curious, courageous, vulnerable, and candid. Mm-hmm. And red button language is outward and or like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Like, and it really is that simple. And you have to identify when you're doing that. Like, in the middle of this episode, there was a moment where I shifted into, and I had to shift back into being on the same team, right? And so hopefully that was a live demonstration. I got to jump. So if you want help in this, red button language, green button language, at very least take a look at the digital assets. I would love it if we could put some examples so I can see how that hurt. That wasn't my intention. Can we start over? I understand your perspective. I'm feeling hurt too. Those are green button language examples that Emilia has here. Anything you want to add before we go?
Nope.
All right. Thank you as always. We have a Relationship Talks virtual event coming up.
Yes, we do. And that will be on July 16th. How to increase your self-worth and your standards in your relationships. And for anyone that's ever felt like you have to trade off your standards and your self-worth to be in a relationship with your partner, this one's definitely for you. But outside of that, we all have a challenge when it comes to this at some point or another. And so join us in that event. That link to register will be in the show notes.
If you have low standards and low self-worth, you're most likely tolerating more red button language than what is healthy. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. We appreciate it. As always, it's not about you or me. It's about
The we.
We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please check the show notes to connect with us and say hello on social media.
If you and your partner resonated with this episode, please leave us a 5-star review at the link in the show notes and share this with someone you love. Until next time, it's not about you or me, it's about
The
we. We'll talk to you next time.